Row for Show Productions presents Humble Beginnings, the Undrafted Podcast. Welcome to Humble Beginnings, the Undrafted Podcast. I'm your host, Rochelle Hamilton Jr., and this is episode 46 of the Undrafted Podcast, man. And we got some good hoop action talk coming up for you today, man. Well, it's March Madness right now. This is one of the best times of the year. I love this time of year because I love March Madness because you never know what's going to happen. I mean, anything goes in March Madness. And man, that Duke and UCF game this past Sunday night, that game had everything in it, bro. Like, if you have a heart condition or if you have like a pacemaker or something like that, that was not the game for you. Because, man, I was sitting on my couch and I'm like, bruh, this game is about to give me a heart attack. That was a great game. So I'm gonna talk about that in the Low with Row, and then I'm in and I'm out. I'm gonna talk about James Harden and the MVP race. And basically, if you ask me, James Harden is the NBA MVP, point blank, period. And what's the wave with Chef Rodaddy? I get this question all the time from people in this segment. People ask me about the recipes and stuff that I basically fix and eat on a daily basis. So I'm going to share with you some of the recipes from my Chef Rodaddy vault. I'm finally going to let some of those out. And this is some bull jive. There were some NFL executives that came out and said that they're worried that the way Antonio Brown went about getting out of his contract in Pittsburgh and demanding and forcing a trade, they're worried that that's going to set a dangerous precedent with NFL players across the league. And I think that is complete and utter bull jive, and I'll tell you exactly why I feel the way I do on that subject. Well, without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it with the Low with Row. Bruh. Duke and UCF, they went head-to-head, toe-to-toe in a classic game that almost gave me a heart attack. Like, man, look, I don't have a horse in this race. I don't have a favorite college team or NBA squad. But this game right here had me on the edge of my seat for both squads. Now, Duke, they have three guys in Zion Williamson, R.J. Barrett, and Cameron Reddish, who could be top 10 picks in the upcoming NBA draft. They could even be the first three picks off the board. Now, that's never happened in NBA history. UCF straight up had Duke on the ropes. Like, they had Duke beat. They had them sweating. They gave the blueprint on how to beat Duke on Sunday night. They truly did, because basically they showed that the way to beat Duke is keep them out of the paint and make them shoot the three, because Duke is not very good at shooting the three-point shot. Zion Williamson, as freakishly talented and as freakishly athletic as he is, he's a baller, but he's not very good at shooting the three. Neither is R.J. Barrett. This dude, he's a baller too, but he struggles when it comes to shooting the three-point shot. UCF, their secret weapon is a taco, a tall taco. Taco Fall is 7 feet, 6 inches tall. Like, this dude, he's big, he's mobile. The brother didn't even have to jump to defend the ball sometimes. Like, that's how tall this dude is. This dude is a human tree. He's got to be the tallest person in the United States. At least you would think so. Now, Taco Fall can defend the rim like nobody's business. And that's exactly what he did on Sunday night, because he was knocking down shots left and right. Duke's Trey Jones, he was 1 of 8 from the three-point shot. That's not very good. And Trey Jones is a good basketball player. Now, he struggled. He has his struggles, but he's a good basketball player. But he struggled with the three-point shot so bad on Sunday night that UCF was basically daring him to take his shot at the three-point line. It was almost like they were leaving him on an island at times when he was shooting, because they just did not see him as a threat when it came to shooting a three. Now, for that reason alone, UCF, they were able to zero in on R.J. Barrett. They were able to zero in on Cam Reddish. Now, Zion, he literally willed this team to the win, and he carried Duke Sunday night. Zion Williamson, I don't even know if people actually realized it. I know I didn't realize it until the announcer said it, but he quietly had a 32-point game on Sunday night. Now, where UCF got in trouble, they got hurt big time defensively when Taco Fall, when he finally fouled out. And honestly, Duke could have gotten him out of the game even earlier, but they made some bad decisions that contributed to their struggles on Sunday night. Now, Duke is not, I've already said Duke is not very good at shooting a three. They're not very good at shooting free throws. The way you beat a team like Duke is you make them a perimeter shooting team. Now, that last 10 seconds of the game, or actually the last 7.7 seconds of the game, Duke straight up got lucky because those lucky bounces of the ball off the rim saved Duke's behind. Somebody over at Duke must be living right. Now, Duke edged this game out 77-76 over UCF, and this is what March Madness is all about. Because there's about to be some great games in this tournament. There's already been some great games in this tournament, but this tournament right here, man, I love it because, yeah, there's some great games coming up in this lineup. The Houston Cougars, they're going to the Sweet 16 for the first time in 35 years. Now, Houston has 33 wins on the season. This is the best school record set by the 1983-1984 team, and that was the last Cougs team to reach the Sweet 16. Now, this team is still in the building stages after they went 13-19 back in 2014-2015. Now, they'll face off against Kentucky on Friday night. That's going to be a really, really good game. Purdue, they're going to face off against Tennessee tonight at 7:29. That game's going to be on TBS. Now, after what Purdue did to Villanova on Saturday, and then Tennessee, they survived the scare by Iowa, I'm ready for that game as well. Auburn, they're facing a tough one in North Carolina, and, man, North Carolina, that squad looks good. Headed up by Roy Williams, of course, the legendary Roy Williams. That's the one squad right there that a lot of people have already picked to win this whole thing. That's going to go down Friday night on TBS. Of course, that one's going to be a great game. Michigan versus Texas Tech, the school that is just 2 hours south of my hometown of Amarillo, Texas. Shout out to the 806. That game is going to be on tonight at 9:39 p.m. on CBS. I'll be checking that one out as well. Duke versus Virginia Tech. Now, this game right here is going to be interesting because it's going to be interesting to see what other squads learned from UCF in defending Duke moving forward. That's tomorrow night on CBS. Gonzaga versus Florida State. Now, as crazy as this sounds, and I know somebody out there is going to talk major trash on me, and to be quite honest with you, I kind of deserve it. But as crazy as this sounds, and I don't take brackets all that serious, so that's another reason why I went with this pick, just to do it. As crazy as this sounds, I picked Gonzaga to win it all for the simple fact I love Cinderella picks. And at the end of the day, I wasn't even serious about this pick. I really just did it just because I wanted to do it. I love Cinderella picks, and just one time, I want to see if the Cinderella pick that I picked can make it all the way through and win this tournament. That game is tonight on CBS. So, like I said earlier, man, there is some great games coming up in this tournament. Anything goes in March Madness, and that's exactly why I love this time of year, because ain't no madness like March Madness. All right, it's time for I'm in and I'm out. Now, I've talked about the MVP race in the NBA a lot lately on this podcast, but this right here, this is getting doggone ridiculous. James Harden is the NBA MVP, point blank, period. And it's not even close. James Harden is the MVP. End of story. And, of course, I don't think I have to say it, but I'm 100% in on this take. This brother hung 57 points on the Memphis Grizzlies last Wednesday. Then he turned around last Friday and hung 61 points on the San Antonio Spurs. Now, that 61-point effort on Friday, that tied a career high for him. He was 9 of 13 in threes in that game. James Harden simply ain't human. He's averaging 27.8 points per game through the first 3 quarters this season. Now, it's a two-way race between him and Giannis Antetokounmpo right now. Harden is averaging 36 points, 6 rebounds, and 7 assists a game. He has 51 30-plus point games this season. The Rockets are 47-28, the 4th seed in the West right now after Tuesday night's loss to the Bucks, who the Greek Freak just happens to play for. Now, on the other side, the Greek Freak, he's averaging 27 points, 12 rebounds, and 6 assists a game. He has 28 30-plus point games this season. The Bucks, they're 56-19, first place in the East right now. Now, for me, this race is over. What James Harden is doing right now and over the course of this season is just remarkable. Now, if he doesn't win it this year, it's a straight-up joke. It's just a joke. He leads the league in scoring by 8 points a game over Paul George, who is second. That's the largest differential since they started tracking that stat 50 years ago. He averages 42 points in games on 0 days rest. Now, you might not have known this. I definitely didn't know this. He's second in the league this year in steals. He has single-handedly made the Rockets a championship contender. James Harden was 23, 10, and 7 in the Rockets' loss to the Bucks on Tuesday night. Now, if you take James Harden away from the Houston Rockets, God knows where this squad would be. Because they're 47 and 28 right now, but without Harden, this is a 500 team easily. Might slightly be better without him, but not by much. Now, some people may argue that since James Harden won MVP this past season, that could or maybe even should prevent him from winning it this year. But for me, that's the wrong way to look at it. Because when you consider he's actually gotten better and he's more important to the squad this year since they lost guys like Trevor Ariza. Now, last year he averaged 30 points, 5 rebounds, 8 assists in 35 minutes a game. This season, he's averaging 36 points, 6 rebounds, and 7 assists in 36 minutes a game. Some people may use Tuesday night's loss to the Bucks as a mark against James Harden when it comes to the MVP race. I really don't think that's a big deal. I mean, he still got his shots up. He still got 23 points. Now, the one thing the Bucks did do, they did kind of slow him down because, man, they basically shut his left side down and forced him to, take some shots that he wasn't all the way comfortable with. But even with all that, he still got his shots up. So, for me, folks can say what they want when it comes down to this MVP race. They can say that Giannis is the MVP. And don't get me wrong, I'm not taking anything away from Giannis. He's got great stats. But for me, Rochelle Hamilton Jr., James Harden puts the V in MVP. Point blank, period. What's the wave with Chef Rodaddy? This is the part of the podcast where I talk about wellness. Now, part of sports and athletics is taking care of your body and being the best athlete that you can be. That same logic can be and should be applied in our daily lives, no matter if you're talking about physical health, mental health, emotional health, or even spiritual health. Now, today in this segment, I'm going to share a few recipes with you that are quick and easy. So often I hear people say that they don't have time to cook healthier or they don't have the money. You don't have that excuse anymore, because I'm about to kill that myth for you. Because I've got a few recipes here from my vault that I'm about to share with you. Now, this first recipe is called garlic butter meatballs with lemon zucchini noodles. And let me tell you, man, this recipe right here, it's quick, it's easy, but most of all, it's good, and it's actually good for you. Now, for this recipe, you're going to need the following ingredients. Now, go ahead and grab a pen or your smartphone and get this down, because trust me, man, you're going to love this recipe. Now, I found it on Pinterest, and it is the biggity bomb. Now, for this recipe, you're going to need 2 pounds of ground turkey, 1 cup of shredded cheese of your choice. You can go lower on the cheese if you'd like, 6 cloves of grated garlic, 2 teaspoons of Italian seasoning, 1 teaspoon of red crushed chili pepper flakes, 1 bouillon cube, you can use chicken or beef, doesn't really matter, black pepper to taste, 1 cup of fresh cilantro or parsley. Now, for this part right here, I personally prefer cilantro just because I love cilantro. 2 tablespoons of butter or less. Now, for the butter, you can go by taste. You can use less butter if you want, or you can use more. Me personally, I just go with the 2 tablespoons. Actually, I'll go with like 1.5, because with butter, I mean, you have to kind of watch the fat grams and things like that. But in this recipe, you're just basically using the butter for flavor. It's not like you're trying to like spread it like you would on like a baked potato or something. You'll need juice from half a lemon, 4 medium zucchini, of course, and for the zucchini, you'll just get one of those veggie spiralizers. I don't know what the technical name for them is. I have one. You'll just get the zucchini and put it on one of those spiralizers and turn them into zucchini noodles. Or you can do like some people and just buy a pack of zoodles that's already made. Those ones that already come in the package, they're already spiralized and everything else that you can just get from the store. And then you'll need 1 tablespoon of hot sauce. Now, in a large bowl, you're going to combine the turkey, the cheese, the garlic, Italian seasoning, the bouillon cube, red chili pepper flakes, cilantro, and black pepper. You're going to mix these really well with your hands or a fork and form meatballs with them. Now, when it comes to the meatballs, you can pick whichever size you want. The recipe calls for medium-sized meatballs, but if you want to go smaller or larger, go ahead and feel free. Now, you kind of have to watch it when it comes down to making them smaller or larger. It's not really going to change the taste. It's just going to change the way you cook them. So if you make them smaller, they're not going to take as long to cook. And then, of course, if you take them, if you make them larger, it's going to take them a little while longer to cook all the way through. Now, once you get the meatballs rolled, you'll go ahead and set those to the side for now. In a large skillet, you're going to melt the 2 tablespoons of butter over medium-low heat. Now, once you get the butter melted, cook the meatballs for 8 to 10 minutes on all sides until they're brown and cooked all the way through. Now, while the meatballs are cooking, you'll baste them with the butter and the juices that are made, as they go ahead and they continue to cook. Now, after they're done, go ahead and take them out of the skillet. In the same skillet, add the lemon juice, hot sauce, minced garlic, and red pepper flakes. Then you'll add the zucchini noodles into all that, and you'll cook them for about 3 or 4 minutes, and you'll stir them occasionally. And stir them occasionally so they don't stick or they don't burn. And then after that, you add however much black pepper that you want. I like black pepper, so I tend to get a little bit happy with the black pepper in this one. Not overly crazy where it just messes up the taste, but I do like to get enough of black pepper in there where I can tell that it's got that little kick to it. Now, once the noodles are done, go ahead and add the meatballs back into the skillet and reheat everything for 1 to 2 minutes. And then after that, you put it on a plate and you enjoy it. Like, it's just that simple. And really, all in all, this recipe takes maybe 30 minutes. I mean, well, for me, it takes 30 minutes just because I've made it so many times. So I really kind of know what to do. I can almost eyeball this thing at this point now. But it doesn't really take very long. I mean, at the longest, with getting everything together, cooking it and everything, you're looking at a tops of like 45 minutes. It doesn't really take very long at all. Another recipe that I like, and this is a go-to recipe of mine. I make this recipe, I make this recipe probably 2 or 3 times a month. And man, once I make it, the way I make it with those 3-pound turkey packs that you can get at Walmart or Tom Thumb or wherever. I make it with those. And man, the way I make this recipe, it lasts me a good 3 or 4 days. So yeah, I like to cook en masse because some people meal prep for a complete week. I don't like to do that because after about 3 or 4 days, I'm really ready for something different. So the most I'll make my food for is 4 days out. And then after that, I got to get something else. But this recipe right here is called a ground turkey chipotle Mexican skillet. And for this recipe, the way I do it, I get 3 pounds of ground turkey, 2.5 cups of chopped onions. It calls for 3 tablespoons of salt, but I don't cook with a lot of salt. I really don't even like salt, so I leave the salt out of this one. But if you want to add salt, go right ahead. But I will say if you're trying to watch your salt intake, or if you're trying to lose weight and things like that, I would almost tell you just to leave the salt out. 3 tablespoons of black pepper, 1 diced red bell pepper. Well, actually, you don't have to use a red bell pepper. Just get a bell pepper. It can be red, green, yellow, or orange. Either one, doesn't really matter. 2 cups of tomatoes, and 2 cans of chipotle chilies and adobo sauce. Some people use 3, but I tried this recipe with 3 cans of chipotle chilies and adobo sauce, and man, let me tell you, that one had my tongue on fire. Like I had to add water and a few other things. I think I had to add I had to go to the store and buy a 1 pound pack of meat just to break all that up, man, because that was extremely spicy. So for this one, even though if you use it like me and you use a 3 pound pack of meat, just go with the 2 cans of chipotle chilies. Because, man, let me tell you, those chipotles, they're not like the spiciest thing in the world, but they got some kick to them, especially when you cook them in the skillet. And then the last thing you'll need is 1 cup of cilantro. You can either use a 3/4 cup or a cup, whichever one you choose. Now, for this one, the way I like to do it, with this one, I like to get a little bit of olive oil, and I like to go ahead and chop up the onions real good, and I just like to cook them in a separate skillet to start it off. And that's while I'm cooking the ground turkey, of course, in another large skillet. So while the onions are cooking, I like to let the onions get a little brown and, let them caramelize a little bit. And then once they've gotten brown and caramelized a little bit, I like to get the bell peppers, put them in there, and the tomatoes as well. So go ahead and mix all that in there with the onions, man, and let that flavor kind of kick into them. And then once those all have kind of cooked a little bit, I like to dice up the chipotles and adobo sauce, cut those up real good, and then slide those off in that same skillet and let all that cook a little bit and let those flavors kind of mix in and get in real good with each other. Oh, man, it's good stuff, man. So, and while those are cooking, of course, the ground turkey's cooking. It's doing its thing. Then what you do is you just take the ground turkey after it's done cooking, after you've got it good and brown. You take it, and, of course, you'll drain all the juice off of it. So use a colony, drain the juice off of it. And once the ground turkey's done draining, you can either use the same skillet that you cook the turkey in, or you can use the skillet, or you can go ahead and just pour it into the skillet with the onions, bell peppers, tomato, and chipotles. You can just pour it in that skillet, and then you'll mix all that together. And it's really just that simple. Now, sometimes what I like to do is I like to get some kind of seasoning and kind of sprinkle it off in there just to give it a little more kick. There's one seasoning that Weber makes, the ground burger or the gourmet burger seasoning. That one is really good. The gourmet burger seasoning by Weber. That's a really good seasoning for this skillet. There's some other really good seasonings by like McCormick. Some people that listen to this podcast, some people use Flavor God. I've never used Flavor God, but I hear he's really, really good. But he's kind of pricey. So I will try Flavor God one day because I do like the fact that he doesn't put any sugar in his spices. So I will be checking him out. There's a spice company here in Dallas called Addy Daddy Seasoning. I've never used them, but some of my friends use them. There's another one called So Fit Grill down there in Houston. Some of the personal trainers that I follow on Instagram, they use them. Now, I have tried his seasonings are really good. So you can use any kind of seasoning that basically your taste buds like, in addition to all this stuff that I just called for in this recipe. And this recipe right here, from start to finish, may take 30 minutes. I mean, both of these recipes don't take very long to prepare. And yeah, so with these two recipes right here, these are just examples of how quick and how easy and how frugal it is to actually eat right. And I've got hundreds of recipes off of my little vault. I guess I should share them on here. I guess I should share them more on this podcast. And then with this recipe, some people like to get either grated cheddar cheese or pepper jack cheese and put it on top. I've tried it with the cheese before, and I'll be honest with you, with cheese, it's really, really good. But I really don't make it with cheese too much just because I'm trying to watch fat grams and calories and things like that. And, of course, cheese tends to do that. And as much as I love cheese, it tends to add extra calories and extra fat grams. So, if you want to add the cheese, go for it. I know a lot of my friends that are on keto, they have no problem eating cheese. I don't have a problem eating cheese. I just have to watch it in moderation. So, yeah, I've tried it with the cheese. So if you want to do that, now if you do make it with cheese, you have to pour everything into an oven-safe container, like a Pyrex dish or something like that. And you'll set the oven for 350 or 375, sprinkle the cheese on there, and then sprinkle the cilantro on top of the cheese and let that all cook and just basically put it in the oven until the cheese melts, and bam, there you go. You got meal prep. Well, if you're just a single person like me, you got a meal for about 3 or 4 days. Now, if you got a wife and kids or a husband and kids and everything else, it may not last you that long. It'll at least get you through some of it. So yeah, those are just two really quick, easy recipes for you. So if you need some recipe ideas, there you go. Now, if you're some of the people who are saying, hey, man, I don't have that kind of time, don't worry. I got you covered on that one. Here's the thing, though, man. Eating healthy, it doesn't have to be super expensive. It doesn't have to be super time-consuming. You just have to find recipes and food that fits your time frame, your budget, and, of course, your nutritional plan. Now, I will say, with so much information at our disposal nowadays with smartphones and the internet, you really have no excuse not to eat better so you feel better. None whatsoever, because there's so much information out there. Even social media, of course, you have to be careful what you look for on social media. But there's a lot of useful information on social media, the internet. You can pull up, anything on these phones. So, yeah, we don't have any excuses anymore. And yes, you may be short on time. Yes, you may have a lot going on. In that case, I got you covered too. Because what I like to do when I don't have a lot of time to cook or meal prep, I like to stop by Chick-fil-A and get one of their salads with the grilled chicken on it and one of the vinaigrette dressings that they offer. Now, my favorite salad when it comes to Chick-fil-A is the Cobb salad with spicy grilled chicken. Lord have mercy, man. That salad right there is what that is. Now, when it comes to the dressing, I just get the zesty apple vinaigrette. Now, it's got a little bit of sugar in it, but it's not enough to derail you throughout the day. So don't trip if you taste that little bit of sugar in the dressing. If salad isn't your thing, well, Chipotle, they're another really good option. Now, when I go to Chipotle, I always get the Rodaddy Special when I walk up in there. Now, what exactly is the Rodaddy Special? Well, I'm glad you asked, because the Rodaddy Special is 2 scoops of grilled chicken, the heat of vegetables in the bowl, and then that's it. And I get brown rice, black beans, and the red hot salsa on the side. And the reason why I get those 3 items on the side is because I don't like to eat a lot of carbs. I have to watch my carb intake and my starch intake. So I just want a little bit of rice and a little bit of black beans and a little bit of salsa on top of everything. But see, the way Chipotle likes to do it, they like to give you a bowl full of rice and a bowl full of black beans and then like 3 pieces of chicken. And I'm not with that bull jive. So just get them on the side. So yeah, those are 2 really good options when you're on the go and you don't have a lot of time. So the next time you go to Chipotle, you walk up in there and you tell them, let you get a Road Daddy special. Now, they ain't going to know what you're talking about, but it sure sound good. And for the last segment of episode 46 of the Undrafted podcast, this is some bull jive. There's a report on Bleacher Report that says some of the NFL executives around the league fear that Antonio Brown forcing a trade from the Pittsburgh Steelers is going to set a dangerous precedent among NFL players. Basically, they're worried that a lot of NFL players are going to try to follow Antonio Brown's example, and I don't see this happening. Now, in Antonio Brown's situation, the Steelers traded him with 3 years remaining on his current deal. But here's the problem. A big part of the reason why Antonio Brown even demanded a trade from the Steelers was because there wasn't any guaranteed money past the first year on his deal. The Steelers are notorious for structuring their contracts like that. And when you look at the financial ramifications of that, I can't blame Antonio Brown for not wanting that either, because with NFL contracts, NFL players, every last one of them is worried about the fully guaranteed money. And in Antonio Brown's case, he was basically like, okay, well, yeah, they've got this big flashy number in front of my contract, but they're not guaranteeing me anything past the first year. And here it is. I'm the best receiver, or one of the best receivers in the National Football League. I've put up 6 consecutive 1,000-yard plus seasons. I've put up 6 consecutive years of 100-plus catches. And, I'm racking up all these touchdowns. I'm racking up all these yards, and they don't want to guarantee me any money past the first year on my deal. Yes, I get it. He still had years and time left on his contract. But at the end of the day, I'm really not ready to – I don't think Antonio Brown was wrong for forcing a trade out of Pittsburgh. Well, from a financial standpoint, I don't think he was wrong. The reason why I say I don't think he was wrong because – these professional sports teams, I say this all the time on this podcast, these professional sports teams will always do what's in the best interest of the team, whether that means not paying a guy the correct amount, whether that means, cutting a guy before they owe him some big signing bonus, or whatever the fact is, they're always going to do what's in the best interest of the team. Antonio Brown, he saw what was going on, plus the fact that he wasn't getting along with Ben Roethlisberger or head coach Mike Tomlin, so that just added more fuel to the fire. He saw what was going on, and he was like, "Nah, bull jive. Y'all not about to do me like that." And then, when you also see how the Steelers did Le'Veon Bell, they wanted to play him on the franchise tag. See, they didn't want to give Le'Veon Bell any long-term contract. They wanted to keep placing these franchise tags and these short-term deals on him, using his body up the way they were using him, because they used Le'Veon Bell heavily. They used him heavy in the run game. They used him heavy in the pass game. They put 400 touches on him in 2017, or over 400 touches on him in 2017, the last time he played. They were going to attempt to do the same thing last year, and Le'Veon Bell, he already saw what they were doing. They wanted to try to franchise him again, and Le'Veon Bell told him, no, you either give me a long-term deal or you're just going to let me out of my deal. And Pittsburgh, Le'Veon Bell went to him, told him, hey, I'll report if you guys just promise not to franchise me again. Pittsburgh basically told him, no, we're not going to promise you anything. You can come back, but we're not going to promise you that we're not going to franchise you. And then they didn't franchise him anyway, and they still lost out on Le'Veon Bell. I don't understand the thinking that's going on up in Pittsburgh. I truly don't. I know that's one of the storied franchises of the league. But has anybody really kind of stopped to think that maybe, just maybe, Pittsburgh's leadership model just might be flawed? They've lost 2 franchise players just in the span of a few short months. But here's my thing with Antonio Brown and Le'Veon Bell's situations, both. Even though they're both 2 completely different deals, they both had the same outcome. Neither one of them are in Pittsburgh. I don't have a problem with either one of them doing what they did from a financial standpoint, especially Le'Veon Bell. That's the most physical position on the football field is a running back. Those guys have short-lived careers. So those dudes especially have to get the money when they can get it. And Le'Veon Bell, he won. I mean, he's 27 years old. He got $35 million fully guaranteed from the New York Jets. I'd say this all the time. And I love the Broncos. I love the Denver Broncos with all my heart. Lord knows I do. But if a player for the Broncos, if the Broncos are not going to give a player as much money as he can get, from the Raiders or the Cowboys or some other squad, and the guy wants to leave the Broncos and go where there's more money coming to him, I have no issue with that. It's disappointing to watch these guys leave, but at the end of the day, these dudes have to do what's best for their lives and their careers. And professional sports careers are short-lived. That's only a short part of your life. You still have the rest of your life after you're done playing whatever sport it is that they're playing. So I have no issue with the guy forcing his way off of a squad that's basically standing pat saying they don't want to pay him or they don't want to guarantee him money when he can go get more guaranteed money from somewhere else. Now, as far as the whole team dynamics and everything else, I'm not going to get into all that because some things you just have to endure. And some things you just have to, there are problems that happen in every locker room. Some things you either have to endure it or you have to nip it in the bud right there, and you just learn how to get along with each other. But from a financial standpoint, I don't have a problem with what Antonio Brown did. I don't have a problem with what Le'Veon Bell did. Get your money, bruh. Wherever you can get it, get your money. Because at the end of the day, these teams, they're always going to do what's in the best interest of the team. Point blank, period. They don't care how it affects you. They don't care how it affects your family. These teams will always do what's in the best interest of the team. Now, they'll use these guys up. They'll get all the production that they can get out of them. And then the minute this guy starts showing that he's injury prone or he starts to lose a step, they're ready to get rid of him and just say, hey, we had to do what was in the best interest of the team. So in a situation like that, when a player wants to do what's in the best interest of the player from a financial standpoint, not from anything else, but from a financial standpoint, when a player wants to do what's in the best interest of the player and the player's family, I have no issue with that. So with these teams acting like they're just shocked and everything else that this went down the way it did, and they're scared this is going to set a precedent among other star NFL players, I really don't see that happening because this was like a historical type of deal with Antonio Brown and Le'Veon Bell both leaving a franchise the way that they did. I mean, this is kind of like those once-in-a-generation type of deals. You really don't see this kind of stuff happen very often. So I'm not worried about star NFL players taking a page out of Antonio Brown's book all of a sudden and then just raising all this ruckus. Because Antonio Brown is lucky. The only reason why he was able to do things the way he did it and make a bunch of noise to force a trade was because he's perceived to be either the best receiver in the league or one of the best receivers in the league. Because you're not about to be some backup player acting like that and then somebody's going to pick you up. No, it doesn't work like that. Only the stars can get away with stuff like that. And even then, only certain stars can get away with stuff like that. So this is not going to be some opening of Pandora's box or opening of a can of worms when it comes to stuff like this. So with these teams being worried about star players basically recognizing their own rights and seeing what they can do to get out of these contracts and everything else and force their way out, them being worried about that, that's some bull jive. Well, that's my time for episode 46 of the Undrafted Podcast. I want to thank my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ for blessing me with the gifts, the talents, and the resources to do this podcast. Thank you for taking time out of your busy day to tune in and hang out with me on this podcast. Remember, you can follow the Undrafted Podcast on Instagram at the Undrafted Podcast or on Twitter at RoForShowPro. And you can catch the Undrafted Podcast on Spotify, SoundCloud, Google Podcast, or iTunes. And I want to leave you with the Bible verse today. The Bible verse that I'm going to leave with you today is Matthew 6:6. But when you pray, enter into your own inner chamber, having shut your door, pray to thy Father who is in secret, and to your Father who seeth in secret, he will recompense you. Remember, do your best and let God handle the rest. Be blessed.